Welcome back to what may well be one of the most requested videos on this channel. How do I buy a car in the UK and what expert tips can we throw in to go along with it? Well, let's get into it. So step one is to find a car that you actually want to buy. Now personally, I'll look everywhere. I look on eBay, I look on PistonHeads, I look on AutoTrader, and if it's a slightly cheaper car that I'm looking to buy, I also check Gumtree and Facebook Marketplace as well. They can be pretty good. It's worth deciding at this point whether you're willing to purchase from a private individual, a private seller, or if you would prefer to go to a car dealership or car trader. The big difference between the two is in your consumer rights. If it turns out soon after purchase that that car that you've bought has got a problem with a car dealership or a car trader, the onus is on them. They are liable for helping you to get it repaired. Whereas with a private seller, you've far less protection. That's one of the reasons why you'll generally pay a premium if you're buying from a dealership or from a trader. Next, this seems like a shameless plug, but on this YouTube channel, I've created hundreds of model-specific buyer guides. So have a search and see if there's one for the model that you're interested in. Now it's time to give the seller a call. Now, I'll always tend to call a seller rather than send them some generic message. The reason for that is I just think you get a much better feel as to what they're like in a phone call, and also they're much more likely to take you as a genuine buyer rather than just another time waster, which you get a lot of when you're selling cars. Now this is your opportunity to ask any questions around things that might have been left out of the ad or not made clear by the ad. So, what is the service history like? Is there any damage? Are there any known problems? And also, if you've watched one of my model-specific buyer's guides, then you might have some model-specific information that you want to ask about. Good example of that would be if it was a Ford Focus, for instance. They're meant to have their timing belt changed every 10 years or 100,000 miles. Now, a seller is not going to inform you of that, especially if they haven't done it. Now do bear in mind, not every seller is going to be completely honest about the car that they're trying to sell, and that's one of the reasons it's so important to do a vehicle history check or HPI check. Now the one that I use personally and trust is vehiclescore.co.uk. I like this service because it gives you certain information for free. It also collates in the MOT history, so you don't even need to bother going to the government website. And also, of course, they do proper paid HPI reports as well. I'm going to put a 15% discount voucher on screen now. Use that code. Make sure you buy a good car. There's no excuse. I'll add a link in the description below as well. Now, on note of the MOT history, this is a really important aspect to consider as well. Now, you'll occasionally see wear and tear items listed on an MOT history, tyres getting low, brakes getting low, and so on. Now, this wouldn't necessarily put me off a car at all, so long as the price was right and I knew I could buy these parts and put it right and stay within budget. What would put me off, however, is, well, this is a great example here. Honda Jazzys. They're well known for getting a bit rusty as they get older, and as you can see, this particular car has had quite a high number of repair items pertaining to rust and corrosion. Now this would indicate a car that's likely to have these problems over and over again. It looks like the rust has got hold of it, so this would be one to avoid based on the MOT history. Now next up is an often overlooked part of buying a car, but I really recommend doing it now, and that is get an insurance quote. There's no use going to view a car and wasting your time and the seller's time if it turns out that insurance just isn't possible for you or is way too expensive. So get on some of the big comparison websites, go compare, Confused, whatever it is, and get an idea of how much it's going to cost you. Do an accurate quote, use all the correct details, and save the reference number of that quote just in case we need it later when we buy the car. Okay, one last step before you go and view the car, and that is how are you going to pay for it? turning up to an unknown location with unknown people with thousands of pounds in your pocket probably isn't the best idea. So if you're planning on paying by bank transfer, which is generally what I'll do, speak to your bank ahead of time. Get them to add a note onto your account, and that way it's less likely to be blocked by the fraud department. Not a complete definite, but it makes it less likely. Something else to consider as well is what day and time are you going to go and see the car. Now, if it's a fairly low amount, a couple of £1,000 for a car, chances are you'll be okay trying to transfer that to the seller at any time. However, good example, when I went and bought my Audi R8, that was quite a high value purchase. Tried putting it through on the app, it didn't go through, and I had to go into the branch to finish off the transaction and prove it was in fact me and not some scammer. Now, I couldn't have done that if I went on a Sunday or if I went late in the evening, so if it is a higher value transaction, maybe go while the banks are open, just in case you have to go into branch to sort it out. So to recap, we've got a rough idea of what the seller's like. We've got our unbiased history report from Vehicle Score. We know roughly how much it's going to cost us to insure the car, and we also know how we're going to pay for it. This is how you go in prepped like a pro. Now we just need to go and look at the car. Now, if this is one part you'd like me to take care of for you and provide a complete report on its condition, then send an email to the email address on screen now and we can get that arranged. Now, if you opt to go and view the car yourself, take your time looking it over. If you've got a list of faults from one of my buyer's guides, check each point thoroughly. Don't be distracted by the seller trying to show you something they think you should look at. Take your time and check all the points that you feel are important, and make a mental note of anything that you notice. Deep scratch, keep it in mind. Little hole in the seat, curved wheel, keep it all in your head for later when the price gets negotiated. Next up, test drive it. I am always mind blown by people who buy cars and don't take them on a test drive. I've sold cars and the new owner has opted not to drive them, and I try and convince them otherwise. Take it on a drive, make sure it's okay. You don't need to be a mechanic to listen out for untoward noises or for strange driving characteristics. Unless it's your first time driving a car, you're probably going to notice something that is seriously wrong. Also, make sure you're covered from an insurance point of view before you take their car out on the road, of course. Now, when you return from that test drive, it's time to start thinking about the price. Now, I am not an advocate for just haggling for haggling's sake, but if there are items that aren't disclosed, things you didn't know about before you went and seen that car, then bring them into the negotiation. Is there maybe a deep scratch that you know you couldn't live with and you're going to need to get painted? Mention it. Does the car maybe need a couple of rear tyres? Maybe you can split the cost with the seller. Be fair, but make sure you get enough off so you can cover yourself for any work that needs doing. Now, once you've paid for the car, it's time for the seller to transfer it into your name. Now, I would really recommend using the online service to do this. That way, both parties, both you and the seller, can witness it happen. Really, really easy to do. If you're instructing the seller how to do it, just go onto Google, type in "I sold my car" and follow the prompts on screen. Something worth bearing in mind also is this service is only available between 7 AM and 7 PM. Now, what will happen with the paperwork after this point is the seller will retain the old V5 document in their name, and they'll pull off the green new keeper slip and give that to you. That's important. You need that to tax your new car, so keep it safe. Now, once that's done, purchase the insurance policy using the quote reference number that we got earlier in this video, and tax the car using the code that's on the green slip. Again, you can just Google that, tax my car, follow the prompts, pay some money, and you're ready to drive off into the sunset in your new car. Now, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have found it helpful, please do hit the like button. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, and also hit that subscribe button as well. I'll see you next time.